really, I mean, fortunes will be built when, you know, or any of these scenarios where we just continue in an inflationary decade, where assets change hands, are going to change hands demographically regardless, or if we end up in some sort of freezing up of the system, kind of like Manarino talks about often, and that is the opportunity to completely decentralize how we do a lot of things in the economy.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for July 24th through July 31st, 2023, while supplies last. And on this one, supplies may not last long, because this week we featured 2023 American Silver Eagles at just $6.99 over spot, our lowest price on Silver Eagles in more than a year. Since its first release almost 40 years ago, the Silver Eagle has been, without exception, the world's most popular bullion coin, which provides unparalleled recognizability and liquidity. It's 3/9 fine, comes 22 a tube, 500 to a box, and is available at just $6.99 over spot while supplies last. Finally, the Silver Eagle is IRA eligible. And if you'd like to learn more about a precious metals IRA, call us, and we'll be happy to help you in that process. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We are at the Rural Symposium on Natural Resource Investing in Boca Raton, Florida, and I'm here with Travis Leicht, who has been on our channel a couple of times before. We reconnected at the show here. Travis, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to see you.
Travis is a boots-on-the-ground libertarian who tries to help people imagine a world where we are not utterly dependent upon huge, too-big-to-fail systems that will inevitably fail because they're too big. We've had, for example, Steve St. Angelo from the SRS Rocco report on. He's talked about the fragility of overly complex empires. Can you guess which one we're talking about in this era? Anyway, Travis, you were quite vocal in the last time we met here at last year's show, talking about what we have to do as people, as ordinary people who want to preserve our freedom, our privacy, and so on, need to establish an informal, voluntary, non-compulsory, distributed or decentralized network of cooperative, being able to interchange with each other. And let's take advantage of maybe technologies that are available in this modern era, but let's keep it very compatible with the gifts of nature. And then recently, you weathered some hurricanes and storms and that sort of thing that knocked down a lot of the systems that people depend on, but also knocked down a lot of trees. And you got a business processing trees, and all of a sudden something clicked for you. And I wonder if you could share with us the story of how these three dots of preparedness, of building up a parallel system of cooperation outside the financial edifice and maybe you can talk about what you feel is this looming risk that we find ourselves under because of the derivative bubble, but then also this ability to work with nature in a way that's fruitful, constructive, et cetera, and be able to use it to enrich the growing power of where you live, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that we need to become more sovereign, like as individuals. And like if we can have a society where we can build local communities of sovereign individuals, that's probably the path forward, moving forward. We had a hurricane come through Florida, Southwest Florida last September, and it was just under a Cat 5. So Cat 5 is 155 mile an hour winds. We had 154 at our house. So we lost a lot of trees. We live in an area where there's like 6 acre, 10 acres, 20 acre homesteads, or estates or whatnot. Most of the area is not like that. Most of our town is like quarter acre and things like that. But we happen to be in an area where we're out in the countryside. A lot of those trees came down. I have a tree and land clearing company, so we started processing trees. And so for the past year, we actually just completed our last cleanup last week. Like our last 6 acre property last week, yeah. And so we've processed thousands and thousands of yards of trees, turned into mulch. Joseph Salatin, you've had him on. I watch all Joel. He is just like, he's incredible. Read all his stuff, anything I can get. But
two quotes I shared with you from Joel that he shared on our channel. One was, he said, humans need to rethink their relationship with raindrops. So rather than our modern world that's designed to just shed them off the roof, get them out of the culverts, get them get them away from our cities and our homes as fast as they possibly can. He says, no, you need to embrace them and convince them to stay around with all kinds of different methods to do that. But then the other thing was, we need to be carbon hoarders, according to Joel Salatin. Can you explain?
And that's what I've been doing. For the last year, I've been hoarding carbon. So we've been taking these mulch chips, composting them down, and then we utilize these in regenerative farming. So when I was in college, I got really into food forest. My university, Florida Gulf Coast University, we did a food forest project with the student government where we basically took a few acres and we started to build, we put in like a bunch of random things originally because we didn't have good guidance when we began, but over the last decade, I've gotten closer to perfection of a Southwest Florida food forest, which kind of, whenever you plant any landscape, but you want to do step patterns. So you want to do something where you would have like your tall trees and then your mid trees and then your bushes and then your ground cover. And the idea is that you would cover all of the earth with something. If it's nothing else, just wood chips, but everything would be covered. And then you would create an entire ecosystem. And so like with our food forest that we build for us and clients, we essentially take the wood chips, we build that as our base. We then put in mango trees. We put in, the next step pattern might be like a lychee or a citrus tree. And then we step down from there to blueberries, and we step down from there with longevity spinach. And then we'll use some sort of fencing or some sort of area to keep livestock in, and then chickens, believe it or not, are the secret ingredients to making everything go. Like they go in, they'll rip through the weeds, the roots, they'll fertilize the place, they'll keep it clean, and then you'll add another layer of mulch chips. Like every year, you'll just kind of freshen it up, and then we're getting like my original plot is getting to the spot where it almost doesn't need any further inputs, where it's just going to kind of go for itself. But like as individuals, this is something that all of us can do. This is something you can do as a community. This is something you can do with, or find people that are doing things like this. But that's but I've been hoarding carbon for the last year in a big kind of way, especially once I got that mental model from Joel. Yep. It was just like, it was like a light bulb moment where I was like, that's the key. Like the base unit is that.
That's true. It's unavoidable. So in addition to Joel Salatin's writings, and guys, if you go to polyfacefarms.com, they got a whole list of his books, very, very helpful. Also, if you go onto our website, Liberty and Finance, which hopefully that's where you found this, you can look under our playlist. We have a playlist called Home Sweet Prepared Home. It's got a lot of Joel's interviews there. But besides his input, if people are going to go purchase a book other than Joel's books, is there one or two that you would recommend?
David the Good. He has a few books out now. But I'm reading that now. You and I were actually discussing that the other day, and I actually brought it to my hotel room. David the Good, he's got one book called Composting Everything, and then he's got, I think it's Florida Survival Gardening. So he's actually down in South America right now. He kind of travels around and does garden content everywhere. But it's he's just a great author. You really enjoy him. But not just for backyard gardeners. But one thing that Joel talks a lot about is that demographically, we're approaching
a demographic winter among farmers in our country.
It's a huge opportunity, right? 95% of all agriculture assets in the next 10 years are going to change hands.
They're going to change hands. That's right. That's one way or the other.
Big deal.
So it can either go to Cargill and Archer Daniels Midland, or it can go to you. Yeah. So that's up to you. You got to make friends with a farmer.
It could consolidate further into Tyson, or it could decentralize. And I kind of it seems to me like there's a huge opportunity. In addition to demographics, we know that we have 900,000 workers a year leaving the workforce that are not being replaced by Gen Z. So we have 900,000 deficit boomers leaving the workforce every year that are not being replaced by Gen Z. So, and this compounds all the way till 2034. So in the space of anything, but certainly in the trades, certainly in agriculture, there's just a massive opportunity. If you think that there will be inflation this decade, agriculture is a great way to hedge, because it's kind of a business where you invest once in the infrastructure continually, but you definitely make one big investment at the beginning, and then your cash flows theoretically are going to increase with inflation. So you're kind of like eroding out the initial investment, or I guess decreasing the initial investment as the inflation. So in a way, you're making inflation your friend, which sounds weird.
And another reason to look seriously at that, as anybody who watches our channel would attest to, is getting your own, for your own family, getting your food security figured out. That's one of the interviews we did with Joel about a year ago called, he says, you need to solve your food security now. With the unprecedented high numbers of food processing plant fires and accidents and explosions, long supply chains that got disrupted during COVID, et cetera. All the reason more to get your food sources figured out. One of the best ways is to do it yourself.
No, that, and when you just research some of the food and how they produce some of this food, you go, I kind of want to know where my food's coming from. Even if it's just working with a local farmer or somebody that's raising chickens. I mean, you don't have to raise chickens. One thing that's interesting is the price of a chicken and the price of a cow have not changed since time of Solomon 3,000 years ago.
When measured in real money.
When measured in real money. Yeah, so 1 ounce of gold will buy a cow ready for harvest. And 1 ounce of silver will buy a laying hen, like a 1-year-old laying hen, which, so.
And that's been constant over history.
If you go on Facebook Marketplace, the price right now will match the spot price of silver for a laying hen. So, and yeah, it's been constant. So it's really interesting that those ratios have maintained. I'm sure that there's been years or seasons where they've been off, but they're pretty much the same.
The other thing that you were talking to me about before we got started was your concern, but you're always the kind of guy who sees a glass half full, and you're saying we have this looming derivatives complex that no one can even quantify how big it actually is. It's like a pile of dynamite that nobody knows how big it is, but when it goes off, when there's disruption that's going to affect everything in our financial lives, rather than thinking Chicken Little running around saying that's the end of the world, that's the end of the world, your reflection on that was, that's our opening.
Yeah, well, let's unpack that. So a derivative bump. So derivative would be if I hedged my bet with you. In some ways, we're essentially making up contracts is what a derivative is. Like an options contract would be a derivative. And if you've ever seen the movie The Big Short, they're essentially trading and selling derivatives. That's what the whole thing. And they only have, in a movie gets exciting towards the middle of it because they've got 12 hours to move this, to buy this and buy that and sell this. And they have to basically find a bag holder for this bad debt. So when you look at there's a great website called visualcapitalist.com, and it'll visualize for you with little squares of okay, this is the crypto market, and there's 4 red bars. And then, this is the gold market, and there's 5 red bars, or, whatever it may be, $10 trillion, $12 trillion. And then you keep scrolling down and it's the derivatives, and it goes page after page after page. And you're like, how many derivatives are there? And you come to a conference like this and Rick Rule is like, well, JP Morgan Chase peers has $50 trillion of derivatives exposure. And you're like, what does that even mean? Mm-hmm. No, you can't even quantify what that means. So what I think could occur is that you have an 08-like moment and these derivatives start to go, which is a cascading effect for all the other derivatives. They all start to launch out. But
meaning that there are counterparty failures where it goes where it's hugely potentially profitable for one person, the other party loses out terribly. What that means is the one who lost out can't pay, and the one who won doesn't get paid, and therefore it nets out.
The nickel market after the Russian invasion, right? Where there were people that had options in place, and then they just unwound it because it was a small little market and they could control it. So if you end up with a derivatives time bomb that just happens to go off because these individuals that all owe each other different options contracts are insolvent, nobody's going to be able to pay it. So what occurs during that point in time, and this is a speculation, but what I would assume would happen would just be a freezing up of the system. So if you were JP Morgan Chase, you might say, we're doing a bank holiday for the week until we figure out who owes what and where are those funds. And so during that moment, it's possible that the ATMs might be down. That you go to the supermarket, and the supermarket might say, hey, our credit card processor isn't processing. So you'd want cash, like that would be the initial, and we do that with hurricanes here in Florida all the time.
Paper
So
cash can
cash
tide
will be
you over a short-term disruption.
will be the thing. Yeah. And so, but during that moment, that seems like if we're going to move to a new financial system, it seems like that would be the crisis that they wouldn't want to waste, maybe even bring on so that would occur. Yeah. But that would also be the opportunity to launch our thing. Like to essentially go, let's take back control of how this economy is moving forward.
In a way that supports individual freedom.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Privacy and,
absolutely.
And autonomy
absolutely.
And personal sovereignty, as you call it.
Personal sovereignty. And you could start this now. And we are literally trading in silver. We've been doing that for 2 or 3 years now. I've got like a group of friends. I keep adding to that network. We circulate 1 ounce silver, and we're, because we produce a lot of eggs, like my wife and I, and then we produce, I have a friend that does like honey and like he refines the whole thing and bottles it. And so like we're already trading in that.
That's excellent. Yeah, at our local farmers market, I stopped at the honey seller's booth. Our viewers might have heard this one before, but I asked, do you take silver as payment? And there were 2 people in the booth. The one lady, I think she was a worker there, looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. But then the owner guy turned around and his eyes were all sparkly. He said, yeah, sure, we do. So it's not going to be too hard to find people in your local community that will be very excited to take silver in payment for their goods or services.
But even just starting now, you don't have to wait.
That's what I'm saying.
Just start now. Just start now. Start in the way that you can. I mean, the easiest thing you can do is like if you don't have 30 days of food stored up, you're not like a doomer, but like it's smart. Because when we went through the hurricane, we had extra fuel stored up. One of my neighbors told me, he was like, I was going to the Wawa station at 1 a.m. because I found that was when there were no lines at the Wawa and the people weren't there. And he said that the attitude on day 3 was really dire. People would wait in line for an hour and a half and they would become edgy.
Agitated,
yeah, and he said, I didn't want to be there.
Right,
yeah, I didn't want to be there. And I was
sometimes they've had National Guard posted near gas stations to get people to calm their tempers down, because people get anxious when they're really concerned, and you got to respect this as a human. If you're concerned that you're not going to be able to obtain the thing you need for your well-being or for your families, that can be very distressing on people.
But an incredible opportunity to serve other people, and fortunes will be built when, or any of these scenarios where we just continue in an inflationary decade where assets change hands, are going to change hands demographically regardless, or if we end up in some sort of freezing up of the system, kind of like Manarino talks about often, and that is the opportunity to completely decentralize how we do a lot of things in the economy.
And for that to be able to be accomplished in a meaningful way in a fairly short period of time, that means we all got to start thinking about those things and practicing and finding ways we can do it, maybe in small ways to start.
And what's available to us now, Joel says this all the time, but we have space-age technology that was not available to your grandfather and his father before him. And we have the systems now to do things that are quite frankly incredible, and we can share information. That's one big thing that we didn't have in, like, say, the 30s or the 1840s or any of these previous time periods, where you can share information now and push out to millions of people in one day. And that just didn't exist previously. So I'm pretty optimistic about how things will unpack from here.
Well, we'd like to have you back to see what progress can be made and any additional ideas you come along, both about the regenerative farming as well as financial decentralization and personal sovereignty. We're grateful, Travis Leicht, for joining us again here on Liberty and Finance.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we can let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Kaiser, my brother Elijah, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.